Charles Duke, one of the few humans to step on the lunar surface, has shared insights that raise serious questions about NASA's decisions after the Apollo missions. For decades, people have wondered why such a historic achievement suddenly stopped. Was it money, risk, politics, or something more? Join us in this video, where we break down what really happened and why returning to the moon wasn't as simple as it seemed. The silence that followed the moon. In 2023, a question was put directly to Charles Duke, simple but loaded. Was there a cover-up? Duke didn't answer the way most people expected. He didn't talk about secrets in the usual sense. Instead, he described something quieter, something more human. He called it institutional paralysis. According to him, NASA has gathered data, photographs, and observations from multiple missions, enough to suggest that the moon is far stranger than the lifeless rock the public was taught to believe it is. Releasing that information wouldn't just add a few new facts to science books. It would shake something much deeper. It would force people to rethink their place in the universe, whether we are alone, whether we ever truly were, and whether the story we tell ourselves about human history is even complete. And so, year after year, decade after decade, the information stays where it is. Not because of some grand evil plan, at least not in Duke's view, but because no one wants to be the one to shatter what everyone believes. Not malice, just fear, a quiet kind of cowardice. But that's only the beginning. Then Duke says something that cuts deeper, something that begins to explain the silence that has lasted more than 50 years. He points out that we could have kept going. Lunar bases were possible. Dozens more missions could have followed. The technology was there, the capability was there, and among the astronauts and engineers who lived and breathed the Apollo program, the will was there too. And yet, everything stopped after Apollo 17 in December 1972. Think about that for a moment. In just 4 years, from 1969 to 1972, 12 human beings walked on the surface of another world. 12 people stood on the moon. And then, suddenly, it was over. No slow decline, no transition into a new phase, no next chapter waiting in the background, just a hard stop, as if someone flipped a switch. Of course, there are official explanations. Budget cuts, Congress pulling funding, the strain of Vietnam, the distraction of Watergate. All of those things were real. The money problems were real. The political pressure was real. Even public interest had begun to fade. None of that is false. But here's the problem. Those kinds of pressures have ended programs before, and they've ended programs since. When that happens, projects usually pause, shift direction, or come back in a new form. They evolve. They don't just vanish completely. Apollo didn't evolve. It didn't pause. It ended completely. And for half a century, humanity never went back. According to Duke, the real reason, the one no one says out loud, is far more unsettling. The people in charge began to realize that the moon was raising questions they couldn't answer. Questions about what might have been there before us. Questions about strange structures. Questions about whether we are truly alone or whether we ever were. And in his telling, the choice became simple in the most uncomfortable way. It was easier to stop going than to face those questions. Not just politically difficult, not just complicated to explain. Truly easier to close the door, walk away, and keep walking. For 50 years, think about the scale of that decision. The greatest leap in human exploration in recorded history was 12 people setting foot on another world, and we walked away from it. Not because we had no choice, but because we made one. Because whatever was waiting in places like the Descartes Highlands was asking something we weren't ready to answer. So the decision was made, quietly, institutionally. Better not to ask, better not to know, because whatever we found up there, it didn't just challenge science. It challenged everything. Our history, our identity, and our place in the cosmos. And maybe the most unsettling part of all, 50 years later, we still aren't ready to face it. From silence to discovery, what did they really find there? Keep watching, to find out. The structure no one was meant to see. Those anomalies, the lights, the sounds, the strange sense of presence weren't what kept Charles Duke silent for 40 years. And they weren't the reason humanity stopped going back to the moon. Yes, they were disturbing, hard to explain, but they were also subjective, the kind of thing that could be brushed aside. Easy for NASA to label as stress, disorientation, or the psychological strain of working in one of the harshest environments imaginable. Two astronauts claiming they heard tones where no sound should exist, or felt watched in the emptiness that could be filed away, explained, and forgotten. But what came next couldn't be dismissed like that, because this time, it wasn't just a feeling, it was physical. It was right in front of them. Duke and John Young were about 6 kilometers from the lunar module on the far side of a ridge. Earth wasn't even visible above them. No blue sphere in the sky, just gray dust stretching endlessly in every direction, broken only by a sharp, unforgiving horizon. They were doing routine work, collecting samples, moving methodically, following the checklist, the kind of task you slip into automatically after enough training. The mission clock was steady. Everything was normal, until it wasn't. Duke glanced toward the horizon. At first, he couldn't explain what felt off. Then it hit him. The shapes. On the moon, nothing is neat. Everything is scattered. Craters, rocks, debris thrown around by billions of years of impacts. There are no straight lines, no clean edges, just randomness frozen in stone. That's not speculation. That's lunar geology. But what he was looking at didn't fit that. There were edges, lines, angles that were too straight, too precise, too intentional. He called it out. Young stopped the rover immediately, and when he looked, he saw it too. They moved closer, slowly. The rover drifted forward, kicking up fine gray dust that hung in the vacuum before settling again like powder. Neither of them spoke. The radio stayed open, but silent. Just the sound of their breathing inside their helmets. As they approached, the shapes became clearer, sharper, more defined, and then it clicked. What they were looking at made every hour of training, every briefing, every expectation about the moon completely useless. It wasn't a rock formation, it wasn't natural. It was a structure, a wall, a foundation, angular blocks, coated in lunar dust, but unmistakably shaped, not by chance, not by geology, but by design. Built, deliberately built, by something with purpose. The blocks were uniform in a way nature doesn't produce, fitted together in a way erosion never creates. Duke would later say he knew instantly, the same way you can tell the difference between a cliff and a building. There's a moment where your brain stops guessing and just knows. Up close, there was no doubt. He estimated the visible portion to be around 100 meters long, stretching across the surface before disappearing into the regolith on both ends, like the exposed spine of something much larger buried beneath the moon's surface. Like they were only seeing a small part of something ancient, something the moon itself had been slowly covering over for countless ages. And then there was the light. Throughout the mission, Duke had noticed strange colors, subtle, shifting hues that didn't belong. But here, near the structure, they were stronger. Blues, purples, moving across the surface of the blocks as if the structure itself was bending light. The tones they had heard before, they were louder now, clearer, almost directional, as if they were coming from the structure itself. Duke keyed his radio, voice steady and professional. Geometric formation, not natural, appears constructed, approximately 100 meters in length, requesting guidance. Silence. Not the normal delay, not the familiar rhythm of communication across space. Duke knew that timing by heart, one Mississippi response. That's how it always worked, but this time, nothing. 2 seconds, 5, 10. He looked at Young. Young looked back. Duke tried again. Houston, do you copy? Nothing. 20 seconds, 30. All he could hear was his own breathing, the soft hiss of oxygen flowing through the suit, the faint crackle of an open channel. He turned back toward the structure, still there, still real, still impossible. And somewhere, 240,000 miles away, in a room filled with the most skilled engineers on Earth, every second of this mission was being monitored, every heartbeat, every breath, and yet no one was speaking. Two men standing on the moon, completely alone, staring at something that should not exist, and the only people who could hear them had gone quiet, deliberately quiet. When the response finally came, it was controlled, flat, almost emotionless. Continue with planned EVA sample collection activities. That was it. No questions, no surprise, no request for details, just an instruction to move on. As if what they had reported didn't matter, or worse, as if it wasn't new information at all, as if it was already known. But Duke and Young didn't just walk away. Not completely. They took photographs, dozens of them, close-ups of the blocks, wide shots capturing the structure against the horizon, angles, context, evidence, everything they could manage before the instruction came again. Move on. Duke would later say, those images were perfect, crystal clear. He took them himself, pressed the shutter with his own gloved hands. There was nothing wrong with them. No blur, no exposure issues, nothing. And yet, not a single one has ever been released. Not one. For decades, Duke has asked NASA about those photographs. The answers keep changing, classified for technical reasons, lost during archival transfer, too degraded for public release. Different explanations every time. None of them convincing. Duke has described his reaction not as confusion, but as anger, controlled but unmistakable. Not the frustration of someone who misplaced something, but the anger of someone who knows exactly what happened and has no way to prove it. Because he was there, he saw it, he held the camera, he pressed the shutter, and he knows those images exist, somewhere, filed away, catalogued, preserved, hidden, buried under 50 years of silence that has never been fully explained. How did reality begin breaking? Let's find out. When reality started to break, the first thing Charles Duke noticed was the light. On the moon, sunlight is supposed to be simple, pure white. That's what physics says. No atmosphere means no scattering, no color distortion, nothing to bend it or soften it. Just raw, unfiltered light hitting a gray surface. That's the textbook explanation, and for most people, that's the end of the story. But Duke said it wasn't always like that. Sometimes, the light wasn't white at all. He described seeing colors that had no reason to exist there. Blues, purples, subtle shifts that didn't match reflections from equipment or the visor of his helmet. It wasn't the instruments playing tricks, it was the light itself. And the strangest part? It wouldn't stay the same. He would look away for a moment, then look back, and it would be different, as if something about it had changed while he wasn't watching. In a world where nothing is supposed to change. Then came something even harder to explain: sound. There is no sound on the moon, not in the way we understand it. No air means no medium for sound waves to travel through. That's basic physics, absolute. And yet, Duke described hearing it, not through the radio, not through suit vibrations or mechanical feedback. These weren't system noises, they were tones, frequencies, sometimes harmonic, almost like music, other times sharp, dissonant, and deeply unsettling. At one point, he turned to John Young and asked if he could hear it too. Young said yes. Two highly trained test pilots, two men selected for their ability to stay calm under extreme conditions, both experiencing something that should not exist according to every known law of physics. And neither of them reported it at the time, because who would believe that? But it didn't stop there. Duke also described something even more unsettling. Time itself didn't feel right. He would be working on a task, fully focused, following procedure. Then he would glance at his suit timer. 20 minutes had passed, but it felt like 2. Other times, 5 minutes on the clock stretched into what felt like an hour, and Young experienced the same thing. They compared notes later, privately. Their experiences matched almost perfectly, yet neither of them ever told Mission Control. Not because it wasn't real to them, but because it was impossible to prove. Then, there was the feeling they both described, but but struggled to explain in any technical language at all. Presence. Duke said every astronaut who walked on the moon felt it in some form. A sensation of being watched. Not by Earth, not by each other. Something else entirely. Something vast. Something aware. He described it as overwhelming, like being under observation by something that didn't just see you, but studied you, the way a human might study an insect that accidentally lands on their hand. Not hostile, not emotional, just aware and patient, beyond human understanding of patience. From the moment they stepped onto the lunar surface, that feeling was there, constant, unchanging. It stayed with them through every sample, every movement, every silence. And it only stopped when they sealed the hatch and left. Alongside it all, strange lights that shifted without cause. Sounds in a vacuum where sound should not exist. Time that stretched and compressed like it had no fixed shape. And that persistent sensation of being observed by something unseen, unnamed, and unexplained. Duke and Young both experienced it on the same mission, at the same time. They spoke about it between themselves, quietly, carefully, and then they never spoke of it again publicly. But here's the important distinction. Everything up to this point, the lights, the sounds, the time distortions, the feeling of presence, that isn't what kept Duke silent for 40 years. And it isn't why humanity stopped going to the moon. Those experiences were strange, disturbing, unsettling in ways that stick with you. But they were still subjective, personal, hard to measure, easy to dismiss. Easy for NASA to file under stress, fatigue, or the psychological strain of exploration. But before the moon, how did Duke's journey actually begin? Stay tuned to find out. The making of an astronaut. Charles Duke was born in Charlotte, North Carolina on October 3, 1935. He came from a grounded, working family. His father, Charles Moss Duke Sr., worked as an insurance salesman, while his mother, Willie Catherine Duke, worked as a buyer for a clothing company. His family history stretched back further than he likely knew at the time, with ancestors who had fought in the American Revolutionary War. But his own childhood was shaped less by history books and more by the world around him. When World War II broke out after Pearl Harbor in 1941, his father volunteered for the Navy. The family moved to California to be near him, but wartime separation soon followed. His father was deployed to the South Pacific, and Duke's mother returned with the boys to South Carolina to stay with her own family. Like many military families, they moved often. After the war, they settled in Lancaster, South Carolina, where life became more stable. His father returned to insurance work, and his mother opened a dress shop. Inspired by his father's Navy service, he set his sights on the U.S. Naval Academy. To get there, he met with his local congressman, who supported his application but advised him to prepare first at a military academy. Duke followed that advice and enrolled at Admiral Farragut Academy in Florida. There, he excelled. He graduated as valedictorian and class president in 1953, and shortly after, he was accepted into the Naval Academy. He entered Annapolis that same year. Like many cadets, he struggled at first with the demands of military life. A summer cruise even made him question his path when seasickness hit him hard. But something else caught his attention: a familiarization flight in a small aircraft. That moment sparked a new interest: flying. At the time, the U.S. Air Force Academy had only just been created, so the Air Force allowed some Naval Academy graduates to transfer into its program. Duke took that opportunity. During his commissioning physical, he discovered a minor vision issue that would have prevented him from becoming a Navy pilot, but the Air Force accepted him anyway. He graduated in 1957 with a degree in naval sciences and became a second lieutenant in the Air Force. From there, his training intensified. He learned to fly multiple aircraft, starting with propeller planes and moving on to jet fighters. He graduated near the top of his class at each stage, earning a reputation as a disciplined and skilled pilot. At MIT, his academic performance briefly slipped, but he recovered through his work on Project Apollo-related research. That work connected him directly to early astronaut circles and helped him secure his master's degree in 1964. From there, he entered elite Air Force test pilot training under the guidance of legendary pilot Chuck Yeager. His class included several future astronauts. Duke performed exceptionally well, finishing near the top again and eventually becoming an instructor himself, teaching other pilots while continuing to fly advanced aircraft. It was during this time that NASA began recruiting its next group of astronauts. Duke met every requirement. After interviews, medical testing, psychological evaluations, and intense scrutiny, he was selected in 1966 as part of NASA's new astronaut class. He joined what would be known as the Original 19, a group that would go on to shape the future of space exploration. So, what are your thoughts about what Charles Duke revealed? Let us know in the comments section below. In the end, this isn't just about Charles Duke. It's about why astronauts went to the moon and then stopped. Money and politics explain part of it, but Duke's story suggests there may be more beneath the surface. Maybe the real mystery isn't what was found on the moon, but why the astronauts never returned. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more space stories.